Echo Round His Bones by Thomas M. Disch, 1967. Nathan Hansard is a captain in the American Army in the near future. A machine has been developed that can transmit matter instantly. Before transmitting, you have to set up a receptor. So one is sent to Mars, and Mars is populated. Hansard is transferring from Earth to Mars. But this instantaneous transition has a side effect that is unknown. When he is transported to Mars, there is a phantom Hansard left on Earth, something that the people cannot see. There are other phantom people who have used the transmitter. In this phantom state, he is unseen by people in the real world. He can walk through walls and actually swim through substances like the Earth. Anything that's transferred through the transmitter leaves a phantom state. So there is phantom air, water, and food that is available, but in very limited quantities. As he explores this phantom state, he is pursued by soldiers who've turned to cannibalism to survive. He hides in the city. The city itself is under a dome. There's enough air for him to breathe, but water and food are a problem. He needs to access goods that have come through the transmitter. At the same time, we follow him in the real world on Mars. War seems to be imminent. Russia has armed the moon, and the United States has armed Mars. Their nuclear warheads will use this matter transmitter to send destruction down on Earth. There is heightened tension at this time. The Mars-based commander's been given an order to be ready to fire in 6 weeks. Unless they're given a command to stand down, there will be nuclear holocaust. Time is ticking. Back in the Phantom world, Hansard gets together with the scientists who created this transmitter. This old man Panofsky has gone through the transmitter multiple times, and so there are multiple copies of him. His young wife has also gone through, so there are many copies of her. Well, phantoms can't connect with people in the real world. Panofsky has theorized that there are copies of him and his wife out there. So he sends food and water and supplies through the transmitter that he is allowed to use. The government which controls these transmitters does not know that he is doing this. They discover that the world is on the brink of disaster. There are some interesting questions, such as more of you are created, do you differ in character? Is it suicide to eliminate one of yourself? Hansard is being hunted by the phantom soldiers he's escaped. Can Hansard find a way to communicate with the real world and avoid the end of all we know? And can he do this while staying one step ahead of the soldiers who are trying to find him? This separating of the phantom self from the real self is actually something that is sensed by the real self. Here's a quote about the real world Hansard on Mars. He had read a story once, or seen a movie, of a man who sold his shadow, or perhaps his reflection in a mirror. Hansard felt like that now, as though at the moment of the Mars jump, 5 weeks before, he had lost some essential, if intangible, part of himself. A soul, perhaps, though he didn't exactly believe he had one. Can Phantom Hansard find a way to communicate with real-world Hansard? And even if he can, what can they do to avert the disaster? Disch creates this phantom world within our real world. He teaches us how this world works, its pros and cons. Can this transmitter technology be used in a way to avert a catastrophe? You'll have to read to find out. This is an early novel by Thomas M. Disch. This novel was serialized first in New Worlds magazine in December 1966 and January 1967. Echo Round His Bones reminded me a bit of Bob Shaw or even Robert Heinlein. Bob Shaw for the innovative ideas and unexpected plotting. Robert A. Heinlein for some of the situations and dialogue that we find with the professor, his wife, and Hansard. Or should I say professors, wives, and Hansard. There's a satirical quality to this work, and obviously it's looking at nuclear holocaust and war. It definitely has an anti-war message. The paradigm shift that we experience when we realize there's a phantom world and there can be multiple copies of people in that world actually builds towards the conclusion of this novel. The type plotting brings all these elements together for a satisfying conclusion. I look forward to reading more Thomas M. Disch. I give Echo Round His Bones 7.5 out of 10. So have you ever heard of Thomas M. Disch or read some of his books? Which book would you recommend I read next? Until next time, keep reading.